This original WSRE presentation is made possible by viewers like you. Thank you.
Healthcare real estate entrepreneur Chad Henderson on this edition of Conversations. Remember the early and mid-2000s? The real estate market was roaring. Speculation and risk capital were flowing like cheap wine. And then the party ended. The Great Recession hit, and for many, dreams of real estate riches were now a nightmare. But for young Chad Henderson, it was a learning experience and a chance to reinvent. Henderson turned his focus on healthcare real estate, and his timing was spot on. The Affordable Care Act set the stage for his type of real estate developments to flourish. Henderson is the founder and chief executive of Catalyst Healthcare Real Estate. The company is based in Pensacola, Florida, but has a rapidly growing national footprint. We are pleased to have Chad Henderson on Conversations. Thank you for joining us.
Man, thanks for having me, Jeff.
You got to tell me your story. I was reading you started out with the entrepreneurial spirit rather young, selling ice cream, huh? Tell me that.
I sure did. It was just a wonderful experience to be able to start at a very young age with this entrepreneurial spirit about you. And so it was a summertime job, and I actually had an opportunity to work at a marina when I was 15 years old, which led to some ideas and very quickly led to start selling ice cream by boat, believe it or not. And so out in Perita Key, I was really kind of 7 days a week using an 11-foot Zodiac that was going up and down the beach on Romar Beach and selling ice cream. And then on the weekends, I'd have a little 15-foot boat that I'd go around Robinson Island over in Orange Beach and down Old River. And as I got into high school and college, had some friends help me out in what grew and grew. But I took a lot of lessons from that. It was a great experience and learned a lot from it.
Was there somebody early in your life that kind of inspired you to want to be an entrepreneur?
Of course, my grandfather was really Papa to me, was an entrepreneur local here. He had a tombstone business, so that was really kind of my first entree into entrepreneurship. And I have an uncle who's still in the flooring business, who's always been a great mentor to me. So, not really kind of the ways of business was really all new to me until the ice cream days. I mean, I think, thinking outside the box instead of making at the time what it was $4.50 an hour plus tips to really think differently and take a chance and start selling ice cream. And my average product was about 17 cents, and we were selling them for $2 a pop. And so for 16, 17, and 18 years old, those dollars added up pretty quick, and it was a lot different than the $4.25, $4.50 an hour.
What do you think it was about you that made you want to do that versus just kind of falling in line and going and getting a job somewhere as a kid?
I think, for me, I think a lot of it was just about the challenge of, you have an idea and can you bring it to reality? Just is there an opportunity to really monetize what you've thought about? And so that's, for me, I think the challenge of starting that to see if it would work. It didn't take long to taste a little bit of success, I think, which helped. I think coming out of the gate, if you tripped, and it's maybe a little harder to get right back up and do something else. But for me, having a little bit of success early on and seeing that if I did think outside the box, which I tell you what, at the marina, you had to be there at 5:30 in the morning too. So I mean, ice cream sales start way later. So sleeping in a little bit was also helpful. But I think just the flexibility, the kind of the satisfaction of having an idea, going out, making it a reality. And then seeing some success was key for me to start early.
Take me on through your career. So you went on to college, graduated Florida State University, and then what happened after that?
Yeah, so really right out of the gate, I've never really experienced a true kind of a W-2 job and working for somebody. So right out of the gate, I actually started working in the business of doing some financial consulting along with some employee benefit consulting, but had the opportunity to kind of run up and down I-10. I lived in Tallahassee at the time, spent some time in Pensacola, all along the Panhandle, and I found myself in front of a lot of business owners. And so from a business owner perspective, kind of having that dialogue and hearing their stories were very inspirational. And it wasn't long to say that maybe I could do some of that. And a lot of them were actually investing in other types of things like real estate. And really became intrigued in real estate at a very young age. And found myself connecting the dots a lot of times of introducing one person to another that maybe involved a real estate deal, and really got intrigued by it and says, well, wait a minute, maybe I can try some of that. No secret, though, I mean, timing was certainly right for me, because I graduated in 2001 in college, and in 2002, 3, 4, and 5, you really didn't have to be that smart of a real estate investor to enjoy some returns and to enjoy some successes. So, so I began to invest in real estate, and so began to do that up and down the coast, but really not really focused on any one asset class. And so for me, some stuff at the beach, some small office, a small retail deal or two. I did a small, more of a student housing project in Tallahassee at a young age that was interesting. And then I found my way doing actually a subdivision in Tallahassee, Florida at a young age. To your intro, though, rang true, though. It was very easy to get capital. It was a lot easier to do deals back then. And so got a lot of experience very, very, very early on in a good way. And of course, we all know the story of 2000, really starting in 6 and 7 and 8. To be able to see one of those and one of those at a very young age was just an absolute blessing for me. I feel like I got a master's and a PhD all at the same time in real estate investing, when all of a sudden the world flipped upside down and there was really nothing you could do about it. So I experienced the ups, I experienced the downs, learned a lot more from the downs than you did the ups, and I think that really kind of set the stage for a for maybe something greater in real estate. I will say, though, one of the things that I took out of the downturn was, I really just did not want to be somebody that was transactional focused, or somebody that just absolutely relied nothing but playing golf with the right person. Or I really wanted to, I learned coming out of that, I really wanted to have a true value-added proposition to whatever really sector of real estate I'd end up serving. So thinking through that is really how it set the stage for really what came about to focusing on one asset class.
Talk a little bit about, because I want to talk about what happened in the crisis when the wheels really started coming off of the wagon. What was that like for you personally?
Yeah, it was stressful. It was one of those things where you're right out of college and you start doing these real estate deals, and you really don't know any better. I mean, all that you have seen from a young age of coming out of college into your first 3-4 years in the business community, really nothing went wrong. I mean, so there was nothing to benchmark it against or see. So for me, having that, while a lot of my mentors and other people that I've talked to have said it's the worst one they've ever experienced, but having that kind of the music stop was certainly extremely eye-opening. And at the time I was, I think 26 or 27, and had multiple subdivisions going. I had some multifamily going. I had investments at the beach. I really did everything that you were not supposed to do. I mean, I was a complete textbook case of getting out over my skis and growing too fast and not doing the proper underwriting on the front end but so for me it was very difficult. It was stressful. Fortunately, I was at a time in my life that I didn't have a ton of overhead and kids, and so I think it was a lot easier maybe to think about recovering from that. I did kind of kept my head high and shoulders back, and tried to make everybody as completely whole as possible, and was very proactive in trying to make right some of the things that went wrong. And ultimately took a lot of lessons from it, and I think that really just helped craft how I think now going forward in opportunities to place capital in real estate and develop real estate.
Now, was there ever a time when you said, "Whoa, I've had enough of this. I think I'll just go get a job"? Or did that entrepreneurial spirit stay with you through even the bad?
I'll probably say that the entrepreneurial spirit stayed with me through the kind of the good, bad, and the really, really ugly in 2007 and 2008. For me, I just always had aspirations to grow something bigger than me. I've always thought big and of what could be. And so for me, and I never really hesitated of not, jumping back in with both feet. And but I do think it was jumping back in a much different way, right? I mean, doing so from a perspective of really, really grasping and understanding value that I could bring to the table, as opposed to just being at the right place at the right time, and having access to capital and a good idea. Much more than that.
What made you focus in on the healthcare sector?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I wish that I could, have this great story about me being a visionary and understood that the things that you alluded to in your opening statement, that the Affordable Care Act was going to come down the pipe, and that all this need for access to healthcare was going to be needed from a real estate perspective. But the reality is, Jeff, is I did a couple clinics. I really enjoyed the stakeholder engagement of working with providers, working with physicians, working with hospitals and healthcare systems, and really very quickly thought about that I could really add some value here. Looked around our region and really saw that nobody was really truly focused on healthcare, and I thought that maybe I could make a difference there. So I dove in, learned as much as I could about healthcare delivery. About the same time the Affordable Care Act was introduced, I really thought that this kind of change in healthcare delivery is what's taking place. So, we have been, from a healthcare perspective, always in a fee-for-service market, right? So it was more destination. Now it's more of the payment modality swinging more to how do you lock down a certain geographical footprint of patient base and offer healthcare access to a continuum of healthcare services. And they have to do that with doing more with less. I mean, capital is precious, and there is always an internal struggle for capital in healthcare of where to put it. And so sometimes real estate doesn't fall at the top of that list. Right. And so the need for a subject matter expert in healthcare real estate with access to capital became more and more prevalent.
What was it like for you when you did the first healthcare deal? I mean, how did you go about doing that? Where did you go get the capital, et cetera?
Yeah, so the first couple that I focused on was more about actually we partnered with providers. Physicians have, in some cases, want to be a part of that real estate investment and own part of their building. However, with their demanding schedule and they may be focused on better on being a provider, right, and partnering with someone that has a little bit more experience in real estate and how to access capital, how to build the proper capital stack from senior debt all the way to the equity position, and then actually working with all of the necessary consultants and sub-consultants to get you to the point where you can have a building up and running. So architects, engineers, working with entitling the property, geotechnical, all the things that you would do that it would prepare you to go develop a building. So what first started as development then really actually rolled into also acquisition. So we began buying existing buildings. And what's interesting about that is that, as I mentioned earlier, kind of a notion of having to access more capital in healthcare and a struggle for capital. Right. So some physicians and health systems were looking to maybe sell their real estate and take that pin-up equity and then redeploy that in their core competency, right? And maybe hiring more physicians or buying that next piece of revenue generating equipment, medical equipment. And so the capital really kind of played from a number of different angles. And so just really, helping providers think through that. And so that's how we got started, is partnering with them. And then as we grew, we do, mostly now we do what's on our own.
What's the size of your company right now as we speak?
Well, we're based here in Pensacola, and we have offices in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and then we also have offices in Central Florida, and we are actually about to open in Dallas, Texas. We have just over 40 employees, so we think we'll be at 50 by the end of this year. I'm sorry, the end of 2020. Okay. And so we've experienced a lot of growth. Our portfolio is, we've been adding to our portfolio. So really, our first, we're a purpose-driven organization, and that our first out of the gate, we want to be a great partner to healthcare. And so, and what I mean by that is certainly there's a large aspect to our organization that can be measured by size of our portfolio, how much capital we've deployed, but we measure it by how impactful we can be on healthcare as a true partner. And so, our portfolio now is probably closer to $375 million, $400 million. We We have a large capital partnership that we are adding to the same JV partnership that we have out of an institutional capital partner. And so we expect that to get bigger, quite quickly.
Talk a little bit about working with an institutional partner, because a lot of people say, well, I'd love to do this or I'd love to do that, but where do I get the money and how do I get to that level? And it's a whole different ball of wax, so to speak, going out and kind of getting a little money from friends and people and then
Right.
dealing on the institutional level. Talk about the institutional
Yeah,
level.
there is no doubt that is certainly an evolution of. I started very much with what I call country club equity. Just so very close friends and family. That experience grew to more of true family office, and then started working with middle market private equity. We had looked at doing a large partnership with a hedge fund out of New York, and then now we are landed with a large programmatic JV institutional partner that allows us to get scale. But you're very right. I mean, what you're saying, it rings true. It's really different of working with more friends and family oriented capital than it is institutional capital, and there is a lot of infrastructure that goes on working with institutional capital. Certainly. In any partnership we do, we're completely transparent and very mindful of accounting and reporting and so forth. But institutional capital ratchets that up just a little bit, just on the frequency of reporting, the level of detail, and so yeah, it's quite different. But if you can really learn how to work within that system, you can certainly kind of get a hold of scale a little bit quicker and get more velocity in the space.
Talk a little bit about outside of healthcare. I know I've seen some news reports that you're possibly looking at some development in Pensacola, maybe above and beyond the healthcare
Yeah,
sector.
certainly. So we live and breathe healthcare every day. That's what we do. We have buildings in 17 states that we're actually growing rapidly from there. But very, very passionate about what's happening in downtown Pensacola. Certainly have great respects for what the likes of Quint has done downtown, as well as Bobby Switzer and a few others that have done some really nice developments, which I think have got a lot of momentum and kind of being a part of the revitalization of downtown. So. Very excited that we're working on a project called the East Garden District in downtown Pensacola, which is something that we've looked at for the last 3-4 years and have been aggregating properties over a certain amount of time. And so our office is on that block. We're in the Rhodes Building, which is will be the southeast corner of Chase and Palafox Street. And so over the years we've added to that, and so we own now 2 North Palafox, which would be the northeast corner of Garden and Palafox Street, and then we started buying buildings to the east of Jefferson Street. So really, the block between along Jefferson between Chase and Garden Street is what we're looking at doing, this mixed-use redevelopment of some existing buildings, as well as doing some ground-up development, from like hotel, a mixed-use building, reactivating the buildings along Garden Street for some great experience-driven retail, food and beverage. And for us, really for me rather, I'm very passionate about urban infill development. I think that vibrant downtowns do wonderful things for the community. They offer opportunities for human capital exchange by way of walkability, finding places to gather and hang out, and just enjoying our downtown, which has a wonderful story and as walkable as it is, and we just want to add to that.
You obviously aren't just doing this by the seat of your pants, so you've obviously spent some time doing research and taking a look at the big picture and taking a look at the future. What is it about Pensacola right now, and I'll even open that up to Northwest Florida, that seems to all of a sudden sort of make us quite attractive?
Yeah, I think there's a couple reasons there. Pensacola, I'll tell you a quick story. I got invited about 10 years ago to a mixed-use summit up in Montreal. I was invited by a friend of mine that was part of a company called Live, Work, Learn, Play that really focuses on mixed-use, experience-driven development. And so I went up to Montreal. We did a week-long case study on the old city of Montreal and all of the ground floor activation And then they put us in groups, and they breakout groups to really talk what we've experienced. And sitting at a round table there, I was there with a land planner from New York, a developer from DC, and just much larger markets. And when we went around to introduce ourselves, I introduced myself as I'm a developer from Pensacola, Florida. Well, two of the architects at the table and a land planner at the table knew exactly where Pensacola was from. He says, "Wow, what a beautiful city to have a perfect urban grid on a gorgeous waterfront, and with all of the history and the storytelling behind Pensacola." And that kind of light bulb went off there, because it's exactly right. So we have a lot of competitive advantage to downtown Pensacola than a lot of other markets. We have a great urban grid. We have a beautiful bay and water. We're increasing access with some of the projects coming up to that waterfront, and we have a wonderful story. I told a friend of mine the other day is that the ability to tell the story around Pensacola with all of the deep history is absolutely a competitive advantage in development. There is plenty of development that's going on across the nation that is more greenfield development that is occurred from urban sprawl, that they're trying to create these town centers and such, and doing so in a greenfield, but they don't have the story and the history that Pensacola does. So I think that's a big advantage from a development perspective. As it relates to having a great downtown, it's a lot easier to work from anywhere, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so you can choose your place to live. And so, the right size of Pensacola to be able to have enough to do and enjoy, but yet small enough to make a good impact, a great impact on your community, or that opportunity to do so, I think is very unique. At the same time, I use our airport a lot, and be able to get around. I mean, with our airport and the ease of the ability to fly and get places is wonderful. So I think it's just a lot of different things that have come together that people are beginning to realize of what a great place.
And it seems to me, and you're certainly hiring folks to come work in your company here, but it seems to me that there's a renewed interest among young people to want to live in Pensacola now versus I want to get out of here.
I think you're right. I think there's certainly some case studies out there with what App River's done, what Iris has done, what Actigraph has done. These technology companies that really go out to recruit these younger, maybe millennials, that really appreciate walkable, vibrant downtowns. And so if we can continue to build on that and have places to go and enjoy and experience, I think we're going to continue to see young people really thinking about Pensacola. Plus that the ability to work remotely, as I mentioned earlier. I mean, I think you're picking where you live first, and then you're going to trying to find maybe the job second, as opposed to 30, 40, 20 years ago, it was opposite of that. So I think we have a real advantage there.
You're a millennial or close to it, somewhere in that ballpark, I believe. I'm safe to say, right?
Yeah, I think I'm just outside. I think I just missed the cut.
Just outside it. Nonetheless, you're working, kind of in that environment. What most excites you about our culture today?
I think one of the most exciting things is that where Pensacola is, and just kind of the evolution of growth. I can't tell you how many times I've had the conversation with somebody that I'm eating dinner downtown or having coffee, and the conversation comes up of, wow, 10, 15 years ago, this place, on the weekends was a ghost town, or after 5, it was a ghost town, and so. In the last 10 years, just to be able to physically see the success and the growth, I think is just it's inspiring, and I think it actually builds momentum. Activity breeds more activity, breeds more activity. So as you see people have success with investments in downtowns, whether it be in real estate or whether it be bringing their companies downtown, I think it's just started a snowball effect. And I think it's really exciting.
What's your long-term goal? Where do you see yourself 20 years from now?
That's a great question. I think for me, I don't know if I could go out 20 years, but I'd say the next 10 years for our company, we want to continue to grow our footprint. We have been very successful in the last 3 years as it relates to gaining scale, velocity, and growth in our space. We are, for us, we want to continue to serve healthcare well, but have a even more national presence. So we have opportunities to expand with regional offices. Healthcare is extremely fragmented, Jeff. I mean, it's not like many other markets where in real estate where you can invest from one place without really getting ingrained in the local community, because healthcare really is local.
Right.
And so for us, we would like to penetrate more, strategic markets for us and continue to impact healthcare. So I would see us to be in more markets. We would continue to build our stable of capital partners and grow a portfolio. With our current partner, we think within the next 24 months, we think we can get to a close to $1 billion in valuation in our portfolio, which is exciting to us.
Yeah.
And I think the growth will just hopefully continue from there.
Would your long-term goal be a public company, or would you like to stay private?
No, I don't think going public would make sense for us anytime in the near future. I'm not sure that would be in the docket. I think I like the flexibility of being private and and having an entrepreneurial spirit about us. And from an entrepreneurial perspective, doesn't mean that we want to go out and run and gun. We still certainly embrace discipline. We have a great cadence to our organization and a rhythm to running our company. I think if you mix entrepreneurial spirit with discipline, you can get great things. And so certainly I think staying private. Now I think for us, we consider ourselves long-term holders of healthcare, but that doesn't mean that we wouldn't recapitalize with some different buckets of capital. As we were alluding to earlier about institutional capital, every bucket of capital has a mission. And so whether that mission is development or value add, or whether it's more core plus minded for long-term holds, it's our goal to really build a stable of capital partners to make sure that we're serving our clients and serving healthcare in the best and most efficient manner that we can, and we just want to do more of it.
We've got about 2 minutes left. I'm just curious, do you have a particular business hero? Is there somebody you look up to and go, I like that guy or I like that girl?
I think if you put me on the spot to ask me my mentor, it would be more of my papa. The reason why is because no matter how large your organization is or how successful your organization is, if you're not grounded in kind of the timeless characteristics of what make up your core values, then I think you're missing the boat. So he certainly has always been a hero. I mean, he had a wonderful work-life balance. He was the patriarch of our family and really casted a wide net. So he's certainly my mentor. Now, as it relates to gaining scale, nationally, there's several people that I look up to, with Quint being one of them. Certainly, Quint has been a great mentor to me. Some of the leadership at Baptist of how healthcare and how they've impacted healthcare nationally has been inspiring to me. But I think if you're doing good work and adding value while maintaining values, I think you're making the biggest impact.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. I wish you all the best.
Absolutely. I really appreciate it.
You bet. Chad Henderson, continued success to you. By the way, you can see more of our conversations online at wsre.org/conversations, as well as on YouTube. I'm Jeff Weeks. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the broadcast. Take wonderful care of yourself, and we'll see you soon.